Welcome everyone to our webinar today. We're talking again about remote worker solutions. So things that can help you deal with some of the complexities and the difficulties of working remotely. The thing we're going to talk about today is something that's a big part of your remote work day, meetings. Let's be honest, they're painful. Right? Meetings are hard, remote meetings are even harder. So we want to talk about some things that can help you with that. But first of all, let's clarify what pain points we're talking about here. So one of the problems of meetings is that multiple meeting tools are involved, both for you and for other people attending, and each one of them has its own download, it seems. Some of them are moody and flakier than others. Sometimes those downloads take a long time or require administrator access. So when you or your attendees are trying to join, it's a lot of extra overhead to get things done. Another problem is embarrassing or distracting backgrounds. Sometimes people are very reluctant to turn their camera on because they're working from their bedroom. The bed's not made behind them. Or they're in the kitchen and the family is going back and forth and doing things behind them. We've all seen the memes. We've all been the memes, right? So it's definitely a challenge. It's a pain point. And that's a problem, really. It's a shame because cameras really do help in a meeting situation. Another problem is a poor camera or a poor mic. What are things we can do to address these? How can we make these meetings smoother and less painful and easier? Well, first of all, Microsoft Teams is the meeting tool of choice in the Microsoft ecosystem. And it doesn't require any download at all. There is, of course, a Teams app you can download to your PC or your phone or your tablet. It's available. It's great. I'm not saying don't download it, but I'm saying you don't have to. Teams works really well in the browser with no download at all. It's easy for you to make device changes, whether that's changing from one microphone to another, one headset to your speakers, whether it's changing to a completely different device from your computer to your phone. Teams makes that very easy and transparent. Another thing that Teams can do to help is it can offer us a way to hide those embarrassing backgrounds so that we're more likely and more willing to turn our cameras on and to have that visual connection with the people that we're collaborating with. So let's talk about how these work a little bit. Let's jump into a demo. You'll notice here in Teams, I'm in a team channel, which is probably where you'll spend a fair amount of time in your Teams client. I'm going to click down here on the Calendar app. Before we dive into anything else, the first thing I want to mention is the new meetings experience in Teams. Microsoft recently released this, and it is definitely something you should know about. I'm going to click on my little profile icon up here and then go to Settings. And you'll notice there's a checkbox right here for turning on the new meeting experience. Highly recommend that when you get into Teams for the first time, you come to Settings and at least turn this on. It is much better than the previous one. As of today, September 1st, 2020, it is not the default experience for meetings. So you will need to come turn this on. In fact, you may notice from time to time, especially if you're somebody that has to log out and back into Teams, you may notice that it turns this new meeting experience off for you. So I would recommend that you kind of make a habit of when you open up Teams in the morning, that you come and check this and make sure it's turned on. It will make your meetings less painful, more enjoyable. Let's go ahead and join one of these meetings. You notice if I'm in a calendar here in Teams, the join button appears right on top of the meeting event. If you don't click the join button, or if you're trying to get in early for some reason, you're not there yet, I'm going to just click the join button up here at the top. The new meeting experience means that the meeting opens in a separate window like this. You can choose to control your camera, your microphone. There's a place here for you to change devices very quickly before you join. And down here at the bottom, you can even choose audio off. I'm going to do that at the moment because I have multiple copies of Teams running at the moment. I don't want that annoying wong, 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 the background noise, the feedback loop that starts. So I'm going to join with audio off. Notice up here how my meeting controls are in a separate bar at the top of the window. I'm in a separate window. That way, if I need to jump over and type a message to somebody while I'm in the meeting, I can do that without losing my place as much. It doesn't do that thing anymore where it minimizes, into a small little version of the meeting window. It's a totally separate window. I can drag to another monitor if I have it. much nicer experience. But also just having this control bar up here at the top and static means that it's much easier for me to mute and unmute, for me to raise a hand, for me to chat in the panel. All those things are easier because the toolbar is not floating in the way down here. That's been a common problem, a common complaint. If I go to another copy of Teams I have open here, you'll notice here's the old team experience with the meeting control bar down here. You can see how this will hover over things in the desktop. If you click in the middle here, the toolbar goes away, but then as soon as you move the mouse, it comes back. This is a frustration for many people in a meeting. That's one good reason for you to leave the old meeting experience and use the new one up here at the top. So hopefully that tip helps you. Remember, you find that by clicking on your profile icon when you log into Teams and going to settings. Now, we've talked about the joining experience when we come from Teams. Let's look at what this looks like if I'm coming from a browser. For instance, if I've received an invitation to a meeting in webmail and I click on the link, it's going to take me to a page that looks like this. Depending on which browser you use, you may get a little security warning that pops up and says this is trying to open up the Microsoft Teams app. I'm going to ignore this one for the moment. Let's pretend that I don't have the app installed, because that may be true for you, or even more likely for your attendees. If you have someone outside of your organization that you've invited, they're very likely not to have the app yet if their organization uses something else for meetings. So you have choices on this page. It's really not complicated in these three buttons. But sometimes it's a challenge, because when someone's trying to get into a meeting, they're in a rush. They're probably late from back-to-back meetings. There's somebody important waiting on them in this meeting, and now we expect them to read buttons on the page. The good news is, though, the one click right in the middle that says continue, one that doesn't say download or open, just says continue in the browser, will do exactly what it says. It will go ahead and jump into the meeting without forcing you to download anything, without waiting for an app to open, without any of those. And you notice, again, joining here in the browser, we get choices about how we would want to join this meeting. Again, I'm going to go with audio off here just so I don't create some audio problems for multiple devices. So the joining experience for Microsoft Teams, pretty easy. We mentioned earlier, it is a good idea to join with your camera. It really does help the meeting feel more human. It helps you to connect more, to communicate more effectively. If you turn on your camera with this little button up here, you'll notice your view shows up down here at the bottom. Notice it shows up with a background in here. You do have choices here on this menu for other things you can do. You notice here is the choice to apply background effects once you're into a meeting. If we click on that, you'll see I get a panel of things. I could blur my background and click apply. You'll notice in the background that I can still see it here, but it is blurred. There's nothing very distinct in the back. You can also pick other things that look rather professional. Like maybe you're looking like you're in the office here. Okay. Maybe working from your home office down here. Maybe working from a fancier home office in a high-rise apartment building here. Okay. So lots of choices, as well as some more entertaining ones. You also have an opportunity up here to add your own background. So you could pull from here, pick any picture you like, and then once it applies, it will show up in your list. You'll notice I've got a few choices from vacations here that I've dropped in. And when you do this, you'll notice, let me go to one of my other attendees here. Okay, here I am joined as someone else. You'll notice you can see me in front of my virtual background. Now, one of the challenges that you'll notice when you're looking at me right now is that the camera on my laptop is not very good. That may be the case with your computer too. Many laptops just didn't come packed with a very good camera. Especially when the pandemic began, it was very difficult or expensive for you to purchase your own webcam to put on it. However, you probably carry one in your pocket that's pretty good. So it's important for us to realize that it is possible for us to use different cameras. We mentioned before that you have options up here to change your devices. So you notice the camera choices down here. If you have more than one camera available on your device, you can do that. If you don't have another camera available, consider joining the meeting from more than one device at a time. Right now I'm on my laptop, and the resulting picture looks like this. However, I'm also joined in this meeting from my phone. If I turn on the camera from my phone and turn it off here, you'll notice it is clearer. Okay? Looks like I'm having a little bandwidth issue. I'm still a little grainy, but it is a better picture, a noticeably better picture from my phone. So consider this. It is not at all hard for you to join a meeting from two devices. And when you're joining from a second device, just remember that audio off choice we had down at the bottom. It'll help a lot with the audio feedback problems you get from multiple devices. But now I'm joined from two different devices. It's possible for me to use that better camera from my phone. Maybe you have a headset that connects more effectively to your phone than it does to your computer. That's something I deal with sometimes. So those are things that are definitely improvements for your meeting experience and for the meeting experience of those you're working with. When you're in a meeting, it is many times important for you to be able to pass information back and forth. These might be links that you need to do. For instance, check out this super cool search site. That's the enter key, sharing links with one another. Notice that Teams does a good job of giving little cards, so it's easy if you're scrolling through a long list of messages, it's easy to pick out links. There may be other things you need to do. You may need to share some kind of a document. Notice there's all the normal message buttons that you get when you're working in a chat or a team channel are down here as well. So I can upload an item like this totally fictional Word document. And while I'm in the meeting and while we're talking, this file uploads in the background. And if I send the message, now the file is available for us to share. One of the things in one of the groups that I work with a lot is when we have our regular meetings, many times the chat is where we'll offer clapping emojis. Many times there will be the little GIFs that get offered in there to encourage someone or to show agreement or to laugh without disrupting the meeting over our microphones. So good things that can be done here in the chat panel. What's also nice about this, one of the pain points from many meeting software tools is that when you leave the meeting, the chat is gone. It just vaporizes with the meeting. Some tools will send it to you in an email if you asked for it. What's nice about this for Teams, however, is if I go to the main Teams client over here and I look in my chat tab, you'll see that the meeting and all the chat that was part of it stays with me persistently afterwards. So it's very easy for us to come back and get these things later. Now let's talk about the process of scheduling a meeting. Let's go into our calendar. You can, of course, schedule things from the Teams client itself. So here, you can click on the time you would like to schedule your meeting. You can add a title, another totally fictional meeting. Add any required attendees. By the way, you need to have at least one attendee if you want there to be a join link and that sort of thing. Otherwise, it's just you're blocking time off, much like you would in your Outlook calendar, for instance. So by adding an attendee, it will automatically put a join link in for me. All the core things you need to create a meeting are available right here. When you're done, you can click the send button. If you want something a little more advanced with a meeting, you can certainly do that as well, because you can schedule these things from your Outlook calendar. Here's my Outlook Web Access calendar. So if I wanted to click in here and schedule a meeting, this is a terribly important meeting. Notice in webmail you get a very small list of things to do here, but you have a more options button. And when you wind up in the larger meeting scheduling box, you have several things that are possible in here. Notice there's a toggle right here where you can turn on a Teams meeting. You get other scheduling options that are in here, including whether you want people to respond or not, whether you want to let people forward. A lot of the things you're used to doing with Outlook meeting scheduling can be done here. You get more options available to you, including things like time zones, and there's all sorts of things like that you can do in Outlook or Outlook Webmail that are a little more advanced. Just remember that here in Outlook Webmail is where you'll find that to turn on the Teams meeting, so it adds a join link to your meeting for any of your attendees. As the organizer, I also have the options to make some other changes to the meeting. You may have noticed, or you may not have, there's a meeting options button up here. These are not things that you'll probably use frequently, but occasionally this may be important. When you click on that button, it opens up a web page that allows you to set things for this specific meeting. Notice these are not default meeting settings for everything going forward. These are this specific meeting. One of the choices here is who has to go through the lobby and who can just enter directly. So I can say if I know that this is a meeting that's going to have people external, I don't want to have to let them in. I don't want them to be waiting by themselves. I can choose everyone here, and people are allowed to come in. There's also a choice here to announce when people come in or not. There's a choice here to control who's allowed to present. Okay? So there are things you can change here if you have a specific reason to do so for one of the meetings you've scheduled where you are the organizer. One other thing that we'd like to talk about a little bit is an option that is called a channel meeting. So if I go to my IT private general channel, you'll notice that the meeting shows up in the conversation. This one has been scheduled, right? So I can see that it's coming up. If I like, I can click on this. I can choose to join it right from the conversation panel. It's also possible for you to use these meetings as a way to spontaneously kind of gather a group together. Let's say that we were having a conversation here in the panel, in the chat panel together as a team, me and at least one or two other people. And then we just realized we need to meet about this, and hopefully a couple of other people can join us too. But even if not, at least the three of us just need to talk about it. You notice that up here in my channel, there's a meet button. There's a couple of things I could choose to schedule for the future, or I could meet right now. I'm going to click meet now. And you notice how it opens this up. I could give it a title here if I want. This is an urgent meeting. I'm going to go with audio off. Okay, now I'm in. Now I'm the only one in, but because I created it in the channel, you see what happens? Okay. In the channel, it shows this meeting started up automatically. It's been running for 10 or 11 seconds, and I can join it immediately as one of the other people in the group, in the channel. If no one else is joining, or maybe some people did, but there's someone else specifically you need, in the chat panel, you could just mention someone, and they immediately get a notification asking them to join the meeting, which can help to gather people informally and spontaneously as you need to. If you think about it, those kind of things happen in the office relatively frequently. You stand up and you're talking over the cubicle wall and you get a couple of other people to talk with you there, or everybody stands up and we just walk to the conference room. So Teams enables those kinds of quick meetings that allow others to join you informally and get it started. Now, the other nice thing about this, do you remember we talked about the chat panel and how you keep persistent access to it? We said that earlier in most meetings, the chat history shows up under the chat panel over here for only those people that were in the meeting. However, a team channel meeting here will store all this chat information. Hello, everyone. Why is no one joining? Okay. Notice that now that chat history is being saved here in the team channel where we're having our shared conversations. So there are good reasons for you to use a channel meeting, even if most of your meetings are not this. There are some advantages to these. Well, that's it. That's some features in Microsoft Teams that can help to minimize many of the headaches that you get from online meetings. Hopefully these tips will help you to make them a little less painful. Some other things we wanted to mention is just some etiquette. When you're working in meetings, here are some things that you can do to avoid distractions, especially for the others that are in the meeting. And if everybody does these things, it makes the meeting more enjoyable for everyone. So the first one is mute yourself if you're not talking. It seems obvious, and of course it is somewhat of a hassle to mute and unmute yourself. It's easy to forget to unmute yourself. But the challenges of forgetting to unmute and having to say something again, that's less of a problem than hearing everyone's background noise or the little comments that you make to yourself under your breath when you don't realize people can hear you. Okay. So mute yourself when you're not speaking in the meeting. It helps the meeting to go smoother. The other thing is to use your camera. Please do. However, blur your background or cover it with one of those virtual backgrounds. That way it's less distracting for the people that you're working with. One other is to use a headset. Get one that's comfortable and use it. You may have noticed I have one of those large over-the-ear headphones. I use this one when I need the best sound quality I can come up with for something like a webinar or a really important meeting. I also have a couple of Bluetooth headsets that I can use that are more comfortable. Have ways you can switch things up. I highly recommend getting a headset that has a mute button on it. That way, if you're sharing your screen, you have to cough or sneeze, you can quickly mute and unmute your headset without having to switch back to the Teams window and find the mute button and all those things. So little things like this can make a big difference, both for your experience in the meeting and for others that are meeting with you. Our webinar next time, 4 weeks from today, our next one will be about avoiding meeting using Microsoft Teams. Talk about some features that help you to get work done more asynchronously. Sometimes merging schedules is harder when everyone's remote because of all the extra things that are going on, all the extra challenges that people may have when not working in the office. So hopefully we'll see you then. Enjoy. For now, let's open the floor up for some questions. So we've gotten a couple of good questions in our Q&A panel. One of which I thought it would be good for us just to talk about for a minute. Somebody had questions about using their phone as a webcam. There are a couple of ways to go about that. The way I was talking about in this webinar was using Teams. You just have Teams installed on your phone and do it. The question really was about how you would get how you get it set up. And you can buy phone stands for your desktop. I have one I bought on Amazon, I think for $10 or $12. I've been really happy with it. It holds the phone up, I don't know, probably 10 inches off the desk. It swivels and adjusts, 15 different ways so that I can get it set the way I want it, get it reasonably close to my monitor so it's not too obnoxious to me looking off to the side instead of at the camera if I have to look at something on screen. I've been very happy with that. There's all kinds of those available. Asif mentioned that there are some that just attach it to your monitor as well. You can get a phone stand that grips onto that instead of a stand on the desk itself. Highly recommend that. You certainly don't want to just have it sitting on the desk level itself. It'll be too low looking up at you, and good shot looking up your nose is maybe not the tone you want to set in the meetings. So having it elevated a bit is a good thing, and it's pretty easy to do that. The other thing I would encourage you is to really think about lighting in these. Again, if you have a tendency to not like to be on camera, the more things you can do to make it look better, the less reluctant you'll probably be. So to have some kind of lighting that comes at you from the front is good. Backlighting is generally bad, right? Even light from the side sometimes just doesn't work very well, especially when you're in close quarters with your webcam. So lit from the front is good. Of course, there's plenty of ring lights that you hear about online where people do things like that, but it doesn't have to be. It could just be facing your desk at a window. That works really well. Or like where I'm sitting at the moment temporarily at this desk, there's just a lamp on the top of the desk, kind of on a shelf up above that gives me some light that way. So pay attention to that, pay attention to your lighting, and try it. Just open up the meeting with just yourself, right? Turn on your camera and try different things to see how it works. And I think you'll find that your camera does a much better job on your phone than it does on your PC, usually. Something else to mention is if you don't like using the Teams app on 2 devices, there are also apps you can get that let you share your phone from your phone, share your camera from your phone as a camera, like it's a webcam on your computer. I do that sometimes as well. I've got one called Droid Cam that I use, but there's quite a few of them out there. If you do a little Googling, they're either free or there's a free version and a pretty cheap one to get a paid version of those as well. If you spend much time on camera, it's well worth having a couple of small investments like that to make the experience better. So hopefully that helps the question. Somebody asked, there's a way to share dual screens in a meeting. I have not seen a way to do that. Looks like Asif is typing a reply there. Maybe he's got another answer for us.
No, actually, I've not seen it either.
Okay.
Unfortunately, there's no way that I know of to share dual screens.
Yeah. And if you think about it, it would probably be a difficult experience for most of the people that would be attending, right? Then they'd see both of your screens squeezed down onto one of theirs, which would probably be pretty difficult to follow and read. And I'm sure there are use cases where that would be convenient, but I've not seen a way to do it. Good question, though. Let's see if we scroll through these. We've got a couple of minutes left here.
Yeah, so one question, sorry,
go ahead.
it just came right now from Lisa. Will this webinar be available somewhere to access? My team should hear this great information. So I can answer that one. Lisa, we are sending the recording, the link to the recording within 24 hours, so you'll get that.
Yep. Always helps to be helpful if it's easy to be shared, right? So we're glad to do that. One other question that I didn't see typed today, but it's a common one that I've heard, is about using Teams in the browser, what's not available there. The good news is most things work in the browser just as well as they work in the application. A couple of things we've noticed, the virtual backgrounds and the blurring is not available in the browser. It's just not there yet. I think that probably will change at some point. When they first started doing the blurring, the browser was the only place you could do it. So I suspect that we will get that on the browser too for both of those. But right now, it's not possible for those. The other thing I'll mention is if you're doing screen sharing, some browsers don't give you as full a functionality there as others. For instance, some browsers you can't request control of someone else's desktop. Some browsers, for instance, I've seen limitations when someone's using Safari on a Mac and they're sharing their screen from there. It does work, but there are places where you will see limitations there. But other than that, pretty much everything works well. In fact, I go back and forth between the two, between using the full application and just the web version. There's a nice trick to taking Teams in the browser and showing that as an app in your start menu in Windows. So you can just click on it and it opens up using the browser underneath, using Microsoft Edge. But it's a good way if you have to log into multiple organizations, it's a good way to do that quickly. Just one click, you can open up the app with different credentials in different organizations. Okay, looks like that is all of our questions today. Thank you very much, everyone. Any last thing you'd like to say before we sign off, Asif?
That's about it. Please spread the news. Of course, these webinars are for VisualSP customers only. So if you do have someone in your company, you are a customer that would like to join, please let us know. You can reply to the email that you'll get with the recording and give us the other person's information if you would like, and we will put them on the list as well if you would like. Or you could talk to your VisualSP admin. And if you don't know who your VisualSP admin is, internally let us know. We can let you know that as well. Thanks very much for joining, and we hope to see you next time.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you. Bye-bye.